Good afternoon to you, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your off-season hurricane outlook and discussion. Now talking about this powerful winter storm that is forecast to blitz a good part of the east over the next several days. Millions of people east of the Mississippi, going all the way back into Arkansas, parts of maybe even Tennessee, and then on eastward from there, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, down through the Carolinas, Virginia, Delaware, Maryland, up into New England. It is going to be a real big mess and a big disruptive storm, and so we're going to be talking about that. First up, though, today we have a little system moving through, creating some winter weather advisories and some travel issues in parts of the southern and central Appalachians, and that will move through over the next several hours and is not part of the storm system, which is actually still sitting out here, that will become the focus over the next several days. In fact, you can see that. This is the area that we're going to be watching, the energy associated with it up in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, and then just a small piece of energy here, again, traversing a part of the Appalachian mountain chain. As that moves on out of the picture, conditions will improve across this region before this digs in to the south and east over time, creating a cutoff low pressure area and a pretty sharp trough in this region, and a lot of energy associated with that. Thursday will be kind of a quiet day, tomorrow of course, and then Friday things will start to pick up again as this energy translates to the south and east and gets involved with the Arctic air that's up here, and all kinds of mayhem will ensue thereafter. Satellite picture shows us the water vapor imagery. This is the upper level system, the energy associated with it, and it'll be again moving to the south and east with time. And now that it is over the United States, lots of mentions about the upper air soundings. Real quick about that, different Weather Service forecast offices, not all of them, but different ones around the country, launch weather balloons that have a ray windsond or a radio windsond on there. It's kind of like the drop sondes in a hurricane, but these go up instead of down via weather balloon, and they sample the atmosphere, what's called a sounding, and it gives us an idea of what's going on from the surface all the way up to the balloon's burst altitude. In most cases, way on up to 50, 60,000 feet and higher, sometimes close to 100,000 feet. And it gives us a good cross-section of the atmosphere with data at a rapid and dense nature. So that's very helpful, these data points. And more weather balloons are going to be launched. And in fact, I read where the hurricane hunters are going to fly over the Gulf of Mexico here tomorrow to drop sondes in that region to help provide even more upper air sampling down to the surface, as this storm is going to impact a lot of people. It'd be a major disruptive event. One thing I want to talk about, and we'll go back to the national map here. If you have any travel plans in the east that involves flying, as we get into Friday, Saturday, you can pretty much forget it. And that's going to have a ripple effect across the country as these delays become stacked upon each other. You're talking about Chicago, Atlanta, down to Tampa, Orlando, certainly out here to Dallas-Fort Worth area. And then, the West Coast will have some issues with some of these delays that happen. But I'm telling you right now, air travel is going to be a nightmare, and people are going to be stuck at the airport. Just if you have travel plans and you can change them, you need to do so immediately and take advantage of the airline's leniency, knowing that there's this powerful winter storm coming. And then, of course, traveling by automobile, not going to be recommended anywhere up and down the I-95 corridor through here over the next few days. Once this really gets cranking, of course, Friday and beyond, just don't do it. So there you go. All right, well, let's get into the analysis here. This is the GFS 12Z run, so this is the very latest run of the model. This is basically the initial condition. Here's our storm system here over parts of the Rockies and out west still, and this is the disturbance moving through Tennessee and the western Carolinas right now. As we go through time, I'm going to just move through the frames here and watch what happens as our system kind of disappears from out here, but it's going to reemerge as energy starts to come together from the very warm Gulf of Mexico. You see this convergence of air down here, and the low pressure area gets developing in northern Louisiana, the Mississippi Valley over the next, we'll call it 36 hours, things start to come together so that by Friday, look at that, you see this is the freezing line here, roughly 2 meters off the ground. That's the 32 degrees Celsius, 32 degree Fahrenheit line, or 0 Celsius. And then this is precip. So North Carolina, parts of upstate South Carolina, down to the Sandhills. And then you see also, needs to be mentioned, Tennessee and Arkansas here, parts of northern Alabama, Mississippi, might see some freezing rain issues. We'll have to just see how far south this line gets. This is going to be a big problem, more icing than anything else. So already Friday morning, this is going to be a big headache. And then as we move through time, the surface low takes shape, moves off the Carolina coastline here, where water temperatures just offshore are very warm compared to where they should be. And then everything really starts to crank up from there. Exceptionally strong wind here. These isobars packed in real tight. You have high pressure coming out of Canada, deepening low pressure here at the surface and aloft, trying to vertically align, and a cold core cyclone, very different from a hurricane here. But the effects can be similar. Very strong winds, onshore flow, coastal flooding issues, and of course the very heavy snowfall that is going to receive a lot of deserved attention. But the coastal impact from this storm does not need to be brushed aside, and I'm going to talk about that in more detail in just a minute. So through Saturday, the storm winds up and evolves to a very potent, almost similar pressure-wise to a typical Category 1 hurricane, maybe the mid to low 980 millibars on the pressure scale. Most hurricanes will be 985, 987, something like that. And this will be similar pressure-wise to the intensity of a hurricane, and it won't be surprising if there are hurricane-force winds in gusts on the northwest side of this system, with that strong pressure gradient of high pressure sitting up here over Canada and the deepening low pressure here over the western Atlantic, hugging the mid-Atlantic and the northeast states. So, it's the details of where the heaviest snow will fall is beyond anybody's capability to forecast this far out. Even while it's happening, knowing where the heaviest snow will fall will be impossible, because there will be a very sharp cutoff to the northern extent of the heavy snow, and there's no way to know where that's going to be. So in general, you can just imagine the I-95 corridor, and then to the coast, and then inland from there, especially in areas like Roanoke, Virginia, D.C., Richmond, possibly down into and across the mountains of Pennsylvania. You can just count on the really good chance of very heavy snow, but the bullseye of who might receive 25 to 40 inches of snow, I have no idea how to explain why nobody knows exactly where that will come, because it's just too dynamic. It's like trying to pinpoint where the 100-mile-per-hour winds will occur in a hurricane landfall, exactly where they're going to occur. Those have to do a lot with convective features in the eye wall and in the spiral bands, and all of that changes every single second of the day that the storm is going on. And similarly, with this system, it's going to constantly be changing and morphing, and the ability to pinpoint who's going to get the highest snow is impossible to pinpoint at this juncture. So don't worry about that. Worry about being ready and not traveling and hunkering down and being safe. Using common sense will be your guide here, I think. And as the weekend progresses, the storm system moves on out with very strong northerly winds coming down the mid-Atlantic states, and lingering snow into parts of even eastern New England at this point in time. Now, one of the things that this storm is going to do, in addition to dumping the very heavy snow in this area probably, and then maybe a swath of that coming into southern New England, parts of Long Island, the coastal impact, like I said, needs to be thoroughly examined. And they will be running a storm surge model for this type of storm. It's not a hurricane, so you're not running a slosh model, which is run for hurricanes, the sea, lake, and overland surge from hurricanes. This is more of an extratropical storm or a mid-latitude cyclone storm surge model, and it takes into account the dynamics and the characteristics of an ocean storm such as the one that we have coming up. So this is the guidance, and this is valid Friday night into Saturday. So this would be, roughly 7 o'clock Friday evening. And I want you to keep your eye on this area right through here, the Delaware Bay region, the New York Bight, and parts of Long Island Sound, and then all of the east coast of New Jersey here. Watch what happens. I keep saying the east coast as if there's a west coast, but you get the idea. All right, so here it is. We move through the early morning hours of Saturday, and already the water levels are starting to rise. We look at the scale here. Not very high, only about a half a foot, a third to a half a foot of water rise at most. So no real problems early in the morning on Saturday before sunrise. But then as the day progresses on Saturday and those very strong northeast winds just pile up the water in here, what we call a fetch, very strong wind over a large open water body will pile that water up against the coastline, which, as you can tell, it's almost a right angle there, so the water just simply gets higher and higher. Added to that, the wave action on top, and maybe 12 to 15 foot waves, and then any rain that falls right along the immediate coast. If the warm air from the Atlantic gets involved enough, you get very heavy rain potential there. The rivers can't drain as efficiently, and that helps to pile the water up even more. As we move through the day on Saturday, the water levels really begin to rise, and you notice here in the Delaware Bay region and the southern parts of New Jersey, just south of Atlantic City, we're talking now 2, 3, 4 feet of surge, and that's on top of the astronomical tide, which will be happening during a full moon. Bad news there. As we move on through the day Saturday, we see that the water levels creep up in Long Island Sound here and start moving. It's funny because, not funny in a good way, but it starts west and then advances east. It's kind of like it's filling up from west to east. And look at right there, there's about a 5 foot surge on the western side of Long Island Sound, and then along the coast of New Jersey here, 3 feet, approaching 4 feet. We'll see that when we get to the pink, and that starts to come in as we get to about 90 hours out. And this will be valid Saturday. What time would this be? This would be about Saturday evening or so. So the 2 high tide cycles for the Jersey coastline and up here along Long Island and then Delaware Bay on Saturday could be rather serious, with the potential for damage to property, severe beach erosion. And if you're right along the ocean, in New Jersey, it's Ocean Avenue, right along the coast there, and they don't close the roads, you could have overwash and a rogue wave come in and you could sustain damage to your car or maybe even be injured. So it's not life-threatening like Sandy was yet, but if you don't use common sense, this can definitely sneak up on you. You can't run down to the beach and park your car close to the beach access and run the risk of there being substantial overwash. Things like that you have to be very mindful of. And as we move through the day Saturday into evening, finally things start to calm down. So it's still fairly early. We're talking about almost 90 to 96 hours out before the peak. That's 4 days. Tomorrow is the big day, I think, because more products from the National Weather Service will start to become available. The models in the regional scale, such as these different storm surge models, will have a better handle on things, and the picture will become clearer. As of now, this is what I know, and the models are going to interpret the information coming in from the upper air soundings. I've talked about that, and we will get a better picture as we go through the next day or so. We'll call it 30 to 36 hours, and then it'll be showtime. This thing's going to come on and come on strong, and people need to take it very seriously. Snow is wonderful. It's beautiful, like I talked about yesterday. It's great in pictures and whatever, but it can be a problem if you don't treat it with respect. Anything that goes wild in Mother Nature can do that to you. I'm going to be heading up to the coast of New Jersey myself tomorrow. I'll get there tomorrow evening. My intent is to place some of our storm surge cameras that we developed for hurricanes along the coast of New Jersey, from the Seaside Heights area north up into Monmouth County, Belmar area where I was for Sandy, and to help the people there watch what's happening right along the immediate coast, with unmanned cameras that'll run hopefully for 30 to 36 hours. It's actually a very brand new generation of these cameras that we've been testing for the better part of a year in various events, and now we get to do it in something very similar to a hurricane. And I'll be heading up there tomorrow. I'll have live video free for anybody to watch. I'll post a link to it on hurricanetrack.com and our various social media outlets, so anybody who wishes to tune in can have a front row seat to exactly what's going on with this coastal event. I'm also sending a camera up to Long Island to a friend of mine up there. He's going to place it on his bulkhead along Long Island Sound in a little community called Baiting Hollow. And then I'll have a camera that'll hopefully work for me up in the mountains of North Carolina. These things are so small now, I can put them in the mail, FedEx, ground, whatever, and ship them anywhere I need to very efficiently. Quite a difference in what we've had even just a few years ago, how heavy they were and bulky and difficult to operate. So hopefully you're going to have 5 different live feeds going, 3 from the coast of New Jersey, maybe 4. I might bring a 4th camera just in case, and then 1 on Long Island Sound, and hopefully 1 from the North Carolina mountains up near Bakersville, where heavy snow could fall. So pretty good coverage from a small outfit such as hurricanetrack.com, if you ask me. The wonders of technology, and I'll bring it to you all live as it's happening. All right, I'll produce another video for you tomorrow before I hit the road, and then I'll be streaming live from the venerable Chevy Tahoe that's been in over 20 different tropical storms and hurricanes, including Sandy back in 2012, and I'll be returning to a familiar area with some great people up there in Belmar, New Jersey. Looking forward to helping them to understand what's happening and also to monitor the situation in real time. It'd be nice to see those folks again. Until then, have a good rest of your Wednesday afternoon. I'm Mark Sudduth for hurricanetrack.com. Thanks as always for tuning in, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.